Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the third episode of Reaching Horizons with your host Abbas Hussain. This week we've got a very special guest. She has a BSc in social work and she's a pastoral mentor. And I've had the privilege of meeting her many times and getting to know her as well. She's an amazing personality I could also say she's my therapist as well. But just to recap on last week's show, we had Muhammad Shafiq on the show and we were talking about the corona vaccine, the coronavirus, the Justice for Shukri Abdi campaign, and also Labour politics. So if you missed that show, do give that show a watch. Without further ado, here is my guest welcoming Masuma to the stage.
Hi, everybody. Hi there.
How are you, Masuma?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. I mean, it's a privilege to have you on the show because I know you're very well educated in mental health, mentoring as well. So I thought, you know what, for this topic, no one's going to be better than yourself. So we do have a few questions for you. But before that, I just want to speak about why you obviously, because a lot of people don't go into university. A lot of people choose to go for an apprenticeship and stuff like that. And some people who do go to university who are either from, we'll talk about our community, the Southeast Asian community. It's like your parents want you to go to university and that's why you go to university. So what about you? Why did you go to university for whatever you did?
So I did social work, and the thing is, I think growing up, I think generally I've always kind of had that kind of passion to help people. And I don't know, when I was growing up, I just knew that's all I wanted to do. I just had that passion, and I didn't really know where that would take me or what direction I was trying to go into. However, I ended up doing health social care at college, and then I found myself looking into social work, and I kind of realized the impact that social workers kind of have on children's lives, especially those who are vulnerable. And I think that was what gravitated me towards what I wanted to do. So I found myself just kind of doing a bit of research into it and just seeing, okay, you know what, I think this is what I want to do. It's just that it's the empathy and the passion and the compassion that you show towards young people and even just vulnerable adults as well. But I think what I kind of wanted to dive into was the young children side of social services. So yeah.
So for A level you did health and social work, right?
So I did. So I actually didn't go down the A level route. I did do it in my first year. Didn't go so well as I'd hoped. But you know what? There's alternative routes to life. Do you know what I mean?
And what was the alternative route?
Doing a BTEC.
But to be fair, I think what a lot of people misunderstand about BTECs is BTECs take a lot more work than GCSEs and A levels. I personally believe so, because I remember in GCSE, when I was doing GCSEs and a few of my friends were doing BTEC, the workload compared to GCSEs, I was astounded. And back then as well, a lot of people talked bad about BTECs, they didn't know what a BTEC was. They're like, oh, you guys have done this, that, etc., etc.
Yeah,
I think. But once you actually saw the workload, I was actually astounded. I was like, these guys are probably brighter than me. And they smashed their BTECs, and I didn't do it as well as them. They got distinctions and stuff like that, but I still managed to get into college and stuff.
Yeah, I think, you know what it is? I think generally when you get into college, there's always that expectation people set, oh, you're doing A levels and stuff. But they don't talk about there's alternative routes that you can take to get to where you want to be. I mean, there's access courses, there's BTECs, and obviously sometimes you do kind of need to step up a little before you can go on to level 3s and stuff. So you might want to do something in a level 2 equivalent to GCSE. So yeah, it's good to kind of look in, go down different avenues. A levels isn't just it. There's always different alternative routes.
I mean, A levels isn't for everyone as well. I mean, people who are like more like hands-on, they choose to go to apprenticeships and stuff like that, like my friends, for like stuff like even accountancy, which like you can pursue a degree in, and a lot of people do pursue degrees, but now the establishment has certain things in place that, you know, you can go down the apprenticeship route if you want to be an accountant and gain an equal qualification as a person who went to university. The only difference is that, you know, you're not in a stupendous amount of student debt. So a lot of people are now pulling away and stopping to go to universities, especially those who are from working class families, stopping going to universities, but they're tackling the apprenticeship route instead. But yeah, it's fantastic to hear about your interests. Obviously, my interests are completely different, but I do respect your the work you do, and I understand you work with a university, if I'm not mistaken.
I actually work with a college, so it's obviously
Pretty much the same thing.
I mean, it's a bit different, but yeah.
It is different. It is different. I mean, like, so, like, obviously, because I worked with kids before. Obviously, college is completely different. The teenagers, they're a bit more mature, if you could say. But I've worked with kids in the past, and they're very difficult to work with. So, like, how do you find your role with the college, and what is it that you do?
So what it is, the college that I'm based at, we do have a lot of children who come from like underprivileged kind of backgrounds, even like the geographical locations. They come from deprived kind of areas, and
Mm.
and we get students who come from like general middle class backgrounds, but we also get a lot of like working class kids as well. And it's just nice that you get like a variety of people, that you get different walks of life. You get a lot of like mature students. You get the youngsters who are like, you know, the 16 to 18-year-olds. Um, and there are people who display like kind of like challenging behavior and stuff, but I think that's probably because of like their upbringing and their background and stuff. So it's about challenging that, and especially as a mentor as well. I mean, I've just newly started the role, but everything that I've kind of learned like throughout like my social work degree and like my placements, I've seen like the challenging kind of like students and young people that I've had, and I've had the privilege to like work with, I would say, most walks of life. To be fair, I mean, I've worked with like children with disabilities, learning difficulties. Um, I've had like mature students I'm working with currently, but in the past I've worked with like older adults who are more vulnerable. So there's like different different people that I've just come across, and yeah, I've had the opportunity to, and I think sometimes it's about getting to understand them as people. I think that's probably the most important part. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I've just thought about.
I think like what you said at the end, they're getting to understand people is really important no matter what you do. And obviously with mental health as well, there's a direct link. You need to understand the person to understand why they're going through that problem, why they're depressed, why they're anxious, why they're worried. So yeah, we'll expand on that point later. But for now, I just want to talk about your degree and role. Like, you know, when you were younger, did you always want to like take the route that you are taking now? So, for example, me, I wanted to like, okay, let me give you a typical example because mine's not really a stereotypical example. Like, for when you're young, like say a young boy, he wants to be a police officer. Then when he grows up a bit, he wants to be like a teacher and then a doctor, and then life clicks at him and he wants to be, you know, a lawyer, an accountant, a surgeon, a dentist,
Yeah.
or even like what are those people called who work with animals? Vetician or something? A vet, sorry, a vet.
Yeah.
A vet, that's it. What is a vetician? So, so they want to become like vets and stuff like that. And like as like time goes on as well, like because like society is getting more modern and more technological. There's a lot of jobs out there now that, you know, my parents, my grandparents never knew would come. So like software engineers, like 40, 50 years ago, no one like thought about like would have this particular job.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell me about like your teenage years and like what you wanted to do.
So it's kind of weird actually, because I feel like I've taken a completely different route in life. I've well, I mean, growing up, I'd consider myself quite like a creative kid. Um, as from as little as like 5, I just remember like being in like reception, and I used to love like drawing. I used to love like coloring, painting, and I always told myself like, oh, when I get older, I want to be an artist. And obviously, like as a kid, like you don't think about, you know, the difficulties of like, and the reality of what life actually is like, you know, it's difficult as even like creatives in general in this day and age. It's it's a lot of hard work that you need to put in, and you know the pay is not always amazing at the start, and there's a lot that you need to do in order for yourself to like progress and actually get somewhere. And I think I kind of realized that as well for myself, like, and it's something that I've always wanted to do. Like growing up, I've always thought I want to go in like a creative kind of direction, but it was really sad like having that conversation with my parents in regards to like what I want to do with my future. And they were like, you know, you got to be realistic with yourself. Like, how long can you actually do something creative? Like, where is that going to actually, where are you going to progress with that? To myself, and I kind of set myself back at that point, because I was like, okay, like now I really don't know what I want to do. But all I know is I've always had that kind of passion for like caring for people, and like, you know, caring about people, and you know, just I don't know. I just felt like I'd always go down that creative route. But then look at me now. I mean, you know, I'm making impact in other ways, like for other people, not just for myself. So
Mm. And I think like one of the most important things is coming from like a religious point, like an Islamic point. One of like the most important things that religion, Islam taught, all the Abrahamic religions actually, is a principle in Arabic called khidmatul khalq, and that means serving the people. And I
yeah,
think that's exactly what you're doing. And obviously, for everyone that might not know Masuma, she's actually like really, really good at understanding people. I'm not just saying this because she's a guest on the show. I genuinely mean it from my heart. Like, she does understand people, and you know, I've spoken to Masuma numerous times where she's provided me and her friend and my friend therapy, and it's just you know, it's fun as well at the same time. And I think that's what you want psychotherapy to be. When you're talking about like your problems, your issues with people, that's what psychotherapy is, without any issue, without any judgments and stuff like that. So you know, a massive round of applause to you. And we really do hope that inshallah that you carry on this good work, serving the people, serving the community. And hopefully we want to see you one day, you know, maybe pursue like a career as a like what those people call like counselor. That's it, a counselor.
as therapist. Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that is something that I can actually like look into, especially in the role that I'm in right now, because the other mentor that I'm working with at the moment, that's something that she's currently undertaking. I would say it's a lot of hard work, and I don't know if I'm prepared to like. I mean, because you know, this is all about mental health, right? So I want to feel like I need to kind of get the ball rolling with this job first before I like look into anything
yeah.
else. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, uh, we can just, for me personally, and probably your friends and family as well, they can just see, you know, excelling in that particular field. So if you do wish to take it, you know, we'll always support you, inshallah, and we'll have you back on the show to see how you're progressing on in that field.
Yeah.
So moving on to like the main notion for this talk show, about it is about mental health. So in regards to mental health, like what would you define mental health as?
You know what?
I mean, to like different people, it can be different. So like depression, anxiety, stress, and stuff like that. And there's a lot of different things that contribute to that as well. But you can talk about something you've seen, something you've worked with, in regards to mental health.
I think you know what, talking about it on a general kind of basis, when you take into into consideration mental health, it's your social well-being, your psychological well-being, and your emotional well-being, and it's all of those things combined, coming together, that impact your health and just your general well-being. So that's what I would look at it as, like from a general kind of like standpoint. But if I had to talk about it more from like a personal perspective, um, I just think to myself, it's about looking after me, because I'm number one. And I think a lot of the times generally speaking, like I do feel like because of like what I mentioned about how I have that passion for like caring for people and just wanting to pursue something where I help people and I look after them, or like in different ways that you can help people, right? I felt as though I wasn't putting myself first, and I came to realize that's something that I really really need to do. So it's about just putting yourself first and like looking after yourself, and that's probably like one of the most important things, because if you can't look after yourself, how are you supposed to like care for others and look after them?
Yeah. I think that's really important as well, like putting yourself first and then thinking about others. Because if you're not in the state of mind to help yourself, then you're not really going to be in the state of mind to help. I mean, like the World Health Organization defines mental health like as being in the right state of well-being and knowing your priorities, being in the right state of mind, able to cope with the stress of life, like the normal stresses and stuff. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, there I've got a quote from the Quran where it said, "Indeed, with every hardship there is relief." Like whatever you go through, no matter what, there is always like light at the end of the tunnel. That good old English saying. And I think it's really important to know that whatever you're going through, it's just a phase. And Allah says in the Quran as well that He doesn't burden a soul more than what it can bear. And I think that's really beautiful. Um, if we talk from a religious perspective, as we'll go into the religious perspective later, but I'm just like just briefly hinting the later topics to come. But yeah, that's really important what you said, knowing yourself and being able to cope with your own state of mind before you move on to others.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I have here as well is what from I'll talk from a university perspective first, and you can talk from whatever perspective you want. So the question is, what worsens mental health? And I think for a university student, and you'll agree with me as well because you went to university as well, it's mainly it's the workload that a lot of students can't cope with, and in particular in the law. In a law degree, the amount of work that you have to cope with is really, really um, it's just very stressful. Like it's really stressful. And I'm just completing some work now, and for me, I know the ways in which I can de-stress myself. I can, read a book, go for a walk and stuff like that. But certain students who don't know how to de-stress themselves, they'll turn to drugs, alcohol and stuff like that. And that's a really big issue as well in universities. And some universities do have things in place to help students, but I don't think much is done in regards to mental health at university. And I think there was a big hoo-ha about it as well in regards to the government and Boris and his cabinet not doing enough to help university students who are in lockdown and were instructed to stay indoors. So what do you think about mental health, and what worsens mental health, or the cases you've seen?
You know what, I'll be honest, there's just numerous things that I feel like, just generally speaking, I think from okay, I feel like from a personal perspective, I kind of screwed up like during uni, like, but not even during uni, because I do feel like I've been suffering with my mental health for quite some time. I would say roughly. I mean, it's coming up to almost like a decade, I suppose. But I think one of the main things I feel like, especially as a uni student and especially going through college and just like these last couple of like years, I would definitely say sleep is such an important thing. Like it plays such a huge role in like your mental health. I mean, like when you're in uni, like you're so caught up with everything that sometimes you forget to sleep, sometimes you oversleep, sometimes it gets so difficult for you to like deal with things that the only way to cope is to sleep. So when you're getting that irregular sleep or like too much sleep, it can take like a massive toll on you, and it's about finding that balance. But obviously it's easier said than done. That's just the honest truth. Like it's taken years for me to understand that, and like try and push different habits. And like I went through a point where I tried to do like a sleep diary and like try and help myself in that kind of way. But you know it's like people have different coping mechanisms, and people find different ways to deal with, what they can do. And I definitely think um, a poor diet, and no exercise, like especially because, like you said, like sometimes you get so caught up in like the workload of uni, it's really hard to juggle everything that you got, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we're humans. Like we have extracurricular activities that we have, like that we do outside of uni. Like we some people love to read, some people love to like watch shows, love, just like chill out and stuff. And thing is, it's hard to maintain that balance, especially when you've got like so much like toppling on you. So it's about finding that balance. But I definitely think irregular sleep, no exercise, poor diet, like and especially when you're a student as well. Like obviously I get that some students take out loans. I mean, I was fortunate to get like a grant. We were like the last year to actually get grant. But people are taking out loans and stuff, and they're struggling to like either pay like rent, or if you're not living out for uni, you're still having to pay a lot of money for like food and stuff. I mean, I remember when I was at uni, like a decent meal, and bear in mind like some of the stuff wasn't even like halal, it was like £4 or £5. And think about it, it does impact like like how much you're actually like you know put in towards like food and just like general stuff. And like it's always, I definitely feel like the biggest thing was definitely not finding the balance. That's one thing that definitely I feel like would worsen your mental health. um you know what, another thing, like it's it's so important to talk about this, especially within like South Asian communities, like the taboo around like mental health. If you're not speaking up about it and talking about it, like what's going to happen? Like, what changes are going to be made? Like, we can't just like secretly like talk about this stuff. It has to be out in the open. And I definitely feel like that was one thing I kind of struggled with at the start. Like I find it difficult to talk about mental health. Because I just thought at the time I felt as though like I was probably like the only one going through it, when realistically like everybody that I knew was going through some form of like mental health related issue, or even just like mental health problems, and they were just probably like dealing it with themselves. So yeah, definitely feel like that's a massive thing. Also, people probably don't speak about this enough, but toxic friendships, negative
Yeah, like the company you keep around you and stuff.
you keep, honestly, it's such a massive deal. If you have constant negativity around you, that's what you become. Like you're going to become that person, and you're going to start to feel like a lot more down. You're probably going to start to put yourself down as well. And yeah, it's just you've got to surround yourself with positive people. And it does come down to the friends that you make during uni, or even like what, it doesn't even apply to like uni students, even like even in college. Like you're kind of venturing out, like you're trying to find out like who you are and stuff. But at the end of the day, if you've got like friends who like genuinely appreciate you and try and understand you, that like that I feel like makes a massive difference to me. I mean, like what, shout out to my best friends. Like they have been my rocks like for like the last 5 or so years. Like I literally made like my best friends in the last 5 years. But I had like some very, very toxic friends in the past who have definitely made an impact on like my mental health. So yeah, I'm just glad that I've moved on from that part of my life, and I see the person that I am now, and I feel as though it's because of the people I surround myself with.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like what you said about your company is really important as well, in terms of like what you believe in, what your norms and values are, what you stand for and stuff. And obviously your mental health, at the end of the day, they are going to have an effect on your mental health. I mean, you spoke about sleep and the need to get your sleeping pattern, like you shouldn't stay awake too long, you should go sleep on time, because when you're sleep deprived, your mood is dependent on how much sleep you get. And I've seen as well, like for example, even the most happiest person, I'm not going to give a personal example without saying the name, because then I'll have to say the name. So I know one of my friends who is a really jolly fellow, if I can use that phrase. He's really happy all the time, and he gets along with everyone. But his mood takes a drastic change as soon as he messes up his sleeping pattern. And once you mess up your sleeping pattern, your diet gets really messed as well. As you spoke about diet as well, your diet's really important. If you have no time, no set time for breakfast, which is one of the most important meals of the day, then there's no point really. Going through the rest of your day doing the tasks that you do because of your mood. So I've just got this quote from the Dalai Lama: sleep is the best meditation, the best form of meditation. And I was reading a study as well about 2 weeks ago about sleep debt. So you know how in biology you have oxygen debt. So when you're running, all of the oxygenated blood goes to your legs, and you're then deprived of oxygen at other parts of your body, your chest, your lungs, your brain. And that's why you breathe so heavily, is because your other parts of your body require an enormous amount of oxygen. Sleep depth works the same way. Depending on your age, you should at least get about 7 to 12 hours of sleep. That's the average for pretty much everyone. For children, it's more. 7 to 12 hours of sleep. And if you're not getting that, your body is going to want to um, recover. And that's why sometimes you see, once your sleeping pattern is messed up, you sleep for a longer period of time at other times. So, the company you keep, your diet, your sleep, as you said, is really important on molding you as a person, but most importantly, your mental health as well. So, like, obviously, you spoke about your friendship circle there, and I would say that I know a few of your friends, and they're really, really nice people. Like, I can just tell, you have a really good friendship circle. You've got Answer, you've got Nosh, who is a brilliant baker, who baked for my birthday Harry Potter cakes. A massive shout out to Noshi Bakes on Instagram. She has she's lovely. She makes lovely cakes. So if you're ever in Birmingham and you need a cake, head over to Instagram, type Noshi Bakes, NOSHEBAKES, and check her Instagram page out. So it's lovely to see like your friends and stuff. And you did say that you were surrounded by toxic people once upon a time, and like, how did that have an effect on you? Like, if you were to compare yourself now to the person you were back then, what would you say the main differences are?
You know what? Literally from the top of my head, I remember feeling insecure about myself a lot, because you know what? It's really messed up, but I feel as though she had a lot of like colorist kind of views. She was a very, very light skinned person, and I just felt as though like I could see like the way that she'd pride herself in being like, really fair skinned in comparison to me. And sometimes obviously like she'd joke it off and stuff like that, but it's a joke or whatever. Um, but I definitely, yeah, the self-esteem kind of issues, like I started to notice, like, because I find myself like thinking like, damn, like, why am I not as fair as her? Like, like why am I like so brown and stuff? And then it took me a bit of time to realize like, oh, you know what, okay, like, why am I so faced by that? But I don't know, that's something that I noticed like more so when I was at uni. Like I started to like, just appreciate myself. And I definitely think it was a constant negative energy like I was surrounded by. And I think it's the weirdest thing, to be fair, because we were like complete opposites. Like everyone would say like, oh, like Mash, like you're so different, like you're so different to her, like we don't understand like how you're friends with her and stuff. And thing is, I put up with a lot in those friendships. Like, I tolerate a lot. And I think that's one thing I've definitely found myself like notice the changes that I do believe in myself now, and I stand up for myself. I'll be honest, I don't take a lot of crap from anyone, to be fair, but and I think that comes from the support of like the friends that I have who saw the friendships from the outside in, seeing that, you know what, you're in a really toxic situation, you need to get yourself out of it. And yeah, I think this what else can I think of? So definitely the self-esteem issues was like a major thing. I feel as though, you know what, another thing. I noticed it as well. Like during college time, we're coming like more towards the end of the friendship. I started to feel as though I was becoming more introverted, and it wasn't like me as well because I loved like talking to people and stuff, but I found myself feeling like I'm kind of being like like I'm in her possession basically. Like she's got grips of me. I wasn't able to like make a lot of friends because I felt as though like I was being restricted by her, and I
Like
felt
very controlling and stuff.
like very controlling. Yeah. So once I was like freed from those kind of friendships and I made the friends that I have now, I've seen like the massive difference I have. Like now I feel like I would consider myself quite extroverted. I do feel like I like being around people. I love like, but at the same time, I love my own energy and I love like being around myself. But yeah, that's one thing I've noticed. I think it's just like I saw my personality flourish when I was around the right people. Mm.
And I think I would say as well, you're very like bubbly around people, and I think your personality is as such. Like, if you've got like if you're having a joke and a bit of like a fun time, banter and stuff like that, the next person that you're with will automatically just catch it and start laughing with you because of your the bubbly atmosphere that you create and stuff like that. And I think that's really important. But kind of like in terms of like control and stuff like that, like some people can be very controlling and like narcissists, if I can use that term very lightly. Um, and I think it's really important to break away from people like that, because if they are affecting your mental health and you are seeing a negative impact of their presence around you, then it's really important to just break away and move on, because at the end of the day, health is wealth, and that's a really important phrase that everyone should live by and stuff like that. The philosophy behind that is a lot, but it's really important to embed it into your lives and make sure that you put your health before anything else.
Mhm.
So alhamdulillah, it's really good to hear that at least you can say what to do if that happens again, if that happens to your friends, if that happens to people you've been through that you personally yourself, and you can talk about personal experience to help them. So I guess like there's a positive that comes out of that.
Yeah.
You've got that, you've been through it, you've experienced it, so people that and that you help can hear from it, and they can learn from your experiences, and I think that's really important as well. So one of the questions that I've been messaged here is, do you think university students are more vulnerable to like deteriorating mental health?
You know what? Yeah, I
Like
definitely do.
more than professionals, say college students, secondary school students. Do you think university students are more vulnerable?
You know what? I would actually consider, yeah, like, because it's just something that I've noticed myself now, like being in a professional environment, like for some time, like or going through like placements and stuff. I've seen the difference of how I was being treated in those placements versus like the professional environments I'm in right now. Um, I definitely feel as though when you've got so much going on in your own personal life, and sometimes, you know what, you might not even have like a lot going on, but you'll have so much pressure from uni and the things that you're expected to do. But the reality is, I think it's not always the case. I feel as though when I was at my placements, when I was like, doing all this work and, trying to work my way to, oh, thank you, Mary. How cute. I was I kind of felt as though there was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of pressure from like the placements, like what you expected to do and stuff. But what I'm kind of like the roles that I have within like my current job, I don't feel like there's a lot of pressure because I know that you're kind of expected to manage your own caseload and stuff. So you're not micromanaged. Like you don't have people on your case all the time. Um, you manage your own time, and it's about like managing it effectively by yourself. And sometimes, you know what, you might need a bit of support and stuff. And I do feel as though uni, see, for me personally, this is like a genuine personal experience. um my dad passed away on the second last day of my first year, and I was kind of hoping for like, some extenuating circumstances, and, like, feeling like a form, and like, hopefully they'd be like understanding of that. However, I don't feel like I got the support that I needed, and like sadly it was turned down. And I just think to myself, you know what, I like, especially considering how I had noted, and I'd let all, like, the staff members know what I was kind of going through. I don't feel like I was supported through that time, and I definitely did feel like I was let down in that situation. And I'm just the one person, like, who went through it. But imagine, like, there's so many other students who go through so much during university, and they don't feel like they have the support, and the support isn't put in place for them. um like, I can understand you get extenuating circumstances for, let's say, if you have like learning difficulties and stuff, but however, why aren't personal circumstances taken into consideration when it comes to that? Because people have, like, people have different circumstances in their life. Like, not everyone is going to be, going through like the worst of the worst. Sometimes it is just a case of you have like little hiccups in your mental health, you feel like you need just that little bit of support for. And yeah, like little things like that aren't taken into consideration, which is kind of unfair. So there is a lot of pressure, I think, on university students. And I think it's probably because what you're focusing on is so specific, and they're kind of expecting the best of the best from you. And I definitely feel like that, even like within social work, like the degree that I did, there was of like, the continuity of like, being professional and like carrying yourself professionally. And yeah, there's a lot of pressure in like so many ways, but obviously it always depends on like, what course you're on, and like, what you're doing. But the general kind of like view that I've had on like how universities deal with that mental health, I don't feel like it was really positive. I don't feel like a lot of students really spoke about it. So I felt as though there were a lot more people who said they had a lot more of a happy and like, like happy time, or like, had a lot of like impact being like societies, and like making friends, and like, finding different like outlets for like their mental health, or like the way they cope with things and stuff. But not a lot of people spoke about like, using the services that are in place for university, because obviously there'd be a lot of like, waiting lists or whatnot. So yeah.
I think in terms of like what the universities have in place in terms of mental health, there's not a lot of systems and what would I call it? Like courses or mentoring programs or support programs they have in place to help students suffering from mental health. And I think from what I've seen as well, because I've visited a lot of universities as guest speaker, and I think there was a lack of them speaking about mental health, stress, how to cope with stress, anxiety, and stuff like that, because university is seen as a place where you grow to build up upon your independence, but that shouldn't mean that you are independent in solving your own problems, your mental health problems and stuff like that, because it's really important to talk about them. That's the way you find solutions. That's the way you make those problems better, by talking about them. And a lot of students who move away from their home as well to, study, for example, me or a few of my friends, obviously like moving away from home can be difficult, and that does affect your mental health initially. And if you don't have the right support network in place, then you are going to suffer throughout your degree. And it's really important to make friends as well in university. I know there's a lot of people in my course, I'm not going to mention the university, but there's a lot of people in my course who aren't very wise, or don't know how to make friends and stuff like that. And I always go, the extra step to, sit next to them, talk to them about their work and stuff like that. I think, like, for me personally, I've always had this view whenever I was in my canteen in secondary school or college. Whenever someone was sitting by themselves, I'd invite them over to our table, to spend lunch with us and stuff like that, because just like the slightest thing like that, it really does make a difference to that person who's sitting alone. But one of my friends who, I didn't know from from like a friendship circle, from one of my friends. He wasn't a mutual. The way that I, became friends with him was inviting him over to our friendship, our table in the canteen, and then just talking about where he's from, what courses he's doing in college, what his plans are. And then from there, used to chill out together. And alhamdulillah, I still keep in touch with him. And so, yeah, it's just, doing the littlest things that can make the biggest difference to people.
Yeah.
But I've got a few more questions. Like we've got 20 minutes left, but I think we'll be able to smash through them really quickly. So there's obviously, we talked about university students are more vulnerable to mental health as well, but because I'm very wary of the education system, and I do work with the Department for Education on strategy and policy advising and stuff. One of the things that I've noticed as well is the unnecessary stress on young students.
Yeah.
One of my friends who has children, obviously, but one of his daughters are in year 6. And one day she came back home and she broke down crying in front of her parents. And obviously the first thing that the parents thought, she's been beat up, someone said something to her, she's been bullied. And it was neither of these three things. She was worried about her mock SATs exam papers. And because schools are too bothered about league tables and fighting with each other to make sure that they're at the top of the league table, so they get that funding, they get that fame, they're the best school, all of this nonsense. They don't give, they don't really care about the mental health. They have no idea what the student's going through in terms of mental health. And I think that's something that I've always worked on as well, is trying to get rid of SATs, because I think they're an unnecessary exam. There's no need for SATs. It doesn't. The secondary school doesn't take into account your SATs grades unless you have plans to go to Eton or all of these places where the elite go. So that was just one thing in terms of like unnecessary stress on young students who are going to primary school. Obviously, bullying is a big topic, and I'm not saying we should turn a blind eye to bullying. We probably are going to do a talk show on Reaching Horizons about bullying and how to cope with someone that's being bullied, and what to do if someone is being bullied. I mean, there's no place for bullying in society anymore, although we do see a lot of bullying in the workforce, in the schooling system, in the justice system. I mean, there was that really famous case recently of Priti Patel allegedly bullying one of her employees. So it's very interesting to see that bullying still exists, no matter how hard everyone tries to eradicate it. Someone always wants to be the big man, the big boss, and hurt other people because they get pleasure out of it. But moving on, a really important question or notion about mental health is: do you think religion has an impact on your mental health? And do you think like your closeness with God helps you control your mental health? And do you think like your praying, your closeness to God provides you with that support bubble to eradicate your mental health? So just a bit about, like, you can give a personal example or you can just talk about it generically.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I could look at it from both kind of perspectives. I mean, if we're talking about it from like a general kind of view, it'd be that I do feel like religion plays a massive impact on your mental health, in the sense where it kind of gives you a sense of like belonging, a sense of understanding. There's some days where people feel like they're lost in this world, and when they turn to Allah, they feel as though there's it's that comfort that they have. And when you build that relationship with Allah, like you constantly feel like you're in this safety, like the safety net. And I think one of the things that we kind of struggle, especially as like the youth of the society, we're trying to balance all of these things. Like we're trying to balance like our social activities, our work life, our educational life, and there's so much that we're trying to do, but sometimes it just takes those little steps towards Allah, and you start to notice that, it's like sometimes your worries, like, they do kind of, like, just kind of flood away. But it's not always the case, though, because obviously there are people who, who prayed their 5 times, salah, and they still struggle with the mental health. And it is something that, like, it's, cure you won't be cured entirely. Like, the thing is, when you suffer with mental health issues, or just general kind of, like, issues around your mental health, it's there to, support you, and it's not going to take away everything physically, but it can help you definitely, like, more on, like, a spiritual and, like, emotional kind of level. And I think, just generally speaking, from, like, a personal kind of, like, experience as well, I've definitely felt it. I've definitely felt as though the times when I'm, more focused on, my deen, and trying to focus on my relationship with Allah, I do feel as though there's a lot more comfort, and there's, like, I do feel like a lot de-stressed. But it doesn't mean that, I'm still not going to struggle with my mental health. It just means that I just have a bit more support because of my religion. And the thing is, you know, when you're so focused on all your stresses, it's like, you see nothing but, like, there's just, like, this tunnel that you're going through, like, vision, where it's like, it's never ending. You just kind of feel like, you're hopeless, like, there's not much to turn to. But obviously, when you look more towards, like, your deen, and, like, like, how much you're actually practicing, it can make a bit more of a difference. And yeah, I definitely think I think people just struggle with their mental health, because people have, like, they've got, it's hard to explain, but, everybody goes through what they go through, and the way that they deal with it, obviously, is how they deal with it. But if you can build that relationship with Allah, like, maybe there might be some difference that you could, make in your life. But I definitely do think religion definitely has played an impact on, my mental health. So, I mean, I can't speak on behalf of everyone, but for myself, I definitely do see it. Yeah.
I think in terms of, like, religion and mental health as well, like, the life of the Prophet, it does tell us about a lot about mental health. I mean, the first time that the revelation was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, his support bubble was his wife, Khadija al-Kubra. And, he went home and he said, this is what's happened, and I feel really, I've got a high temperature, and I feel like what's happened has really affected me mentally. And there's loads of different things that the Prophet went to. He got stoned in Ta'if when he went to give dawah. They mocked him when he claimed prophethood. But even after all of that, even after everything that the Prophet went through, more than, I believe, 2 billion people on the planet claim him as their prophet. Yeah, like, even after all of the hardship the Prophet went through, there's such an enormous amount of human population who follow his way, who follow his sunnah. And I think if we just take that into consideration, and, in terms of our mental health, have the Prophet as an example, after all this hardship, he still remained victorious. I mean, just like the ayah of the Quran says there, indeed, with every hardship there is relief. Like, there are plenty of hardships that the Prophet went through, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always provided him with a relief. I mean, when the Prophet was stressed and depressed, the Surah Duha was revealed, highlighting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not deserted the Prophet, and he's given everything to the Prophet. He found the Prophet ﷺ engrossed in love of God, and he made the Prophet ﷺ very well known even till this day. As I said, a lot of people still follow the Prophet, and as they should. I mean, he's the role model for us, not just in mental health, in any aspects of life. So it was really good, speaking about, your journey and the work you do, but most importantly, you sharing your experiences on mental health and being so open about it. But definitely, alhamdulillah, it's been a good show. And just a massive thank you to you coming onto the show. Like, time's running out. I'm trying to make it as quickly as I can. We got through everything we needed to talk about, thankfully. But yeah, just
thanks for having me as well. Yeah.
Sorry?
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
No, it was a pleasure. I mean, you were really nervous for this, but now that you've done it, you're probably going to be ringing me in a few days. Oh, boss, can I come back onto the show again? And I'll be like, with pleasure, with pleasure. It's just literally having a conversation, and people, you know, they show their support, they ask questions and stuff like that. So inshallah, it's something that I'm going to carry on doing. We'll just leave with this quote here, which I think is really important. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Preparation for everything is so important. With your studies, with life and stuff like that, keeping on top of your mental health. If you follow this quote correctly, your mental health, inshallah, should be good. You won't need to worry about stressing, anxiety. But stress, at the end of the day, is just something that everyone has. You know, the extent of stress that a person has differs depending on what situation he's in. Just remember that inshallah it's a phase, and hopefully God will have mercy on you and he'll alleviate your distresses one way or another. But thank you very much, Mash, for coming on. Just a big shout out to the ear expert on Instagram. A brother has just started a business. He's a qualified audiologist. He travels, he works with the NHS. He's an expert at cleaning your ears. I've seen his videos on Instagram. He does a tremendous job. I've seen reviews as well about people who have used his services, and their ears are pristine. You know, they can hear so clearly, and you know, it just feels very clean as well to, you know, just have the wax removed that you can't reach and, you know, have pristine hearing. So a shout out to the ear expert on Instagram. I believe it's the_ear_expert. And if you still can't find him, just head over to my Instagram, Gasmaybro, KASMAYBRO, and go on my following and type the ear expert, and you should be able to find him. But again, thank you very much, Mash, for coming onto the show and sharing your experiences. I'll catch you inshallah another time, and I'm hoping that in a few weeks or a few months you come back onto the show again and we're able to hear what work you're doing and how you're progressing as a pastoral mentor. But thank you very much for coming onto the show.
Thanks for having me as well. Yeah, thank you for everything. You know, I'd be happy to come back, honestly.
Pleasure's all mine.
Yeah.
So that was Mash, guys. You know, a massive thank you to her for coming onto the show and talking about her experiences on mental health and her personal experiences as well. But we hope, inshallah, to hear from her again soon when the time comes. We hope she does really excel in the work she's doing with her college, and khidmatul khalq, serving the people, serving the community, is really, really important. So till next time, it's a massive, massive thank you to her and a massive goodbye to all of you. Catch us next week, Saturday, from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Reaching Horizons with your host, Abbas Hussain. Till next time, Assalamu alaikum.